The first was that neither of us should or even could drive. This was particularly difficult for my boyfriend to think about, as one of his close friends' parents had recently passed away in a car accident and it had been weighing heavily on him, so even thinking about driving under the influence was enough to send him spiraling even after I assured him that either of us driving was completely out of the question. My brain could not work fast enough to properly comfort him, so I sat in the passenger seat and stared blankly at him as he curled up into a fetal position in the driver's seat and began to sob uncontrollably. I was eventually able to talk him into calling one of his friends from the co-op to take us back, and we were thankfully able to get back there safe and sound. Unfortunately, that was only the beginning. As we walked back to my boyfriend's room, we realized another problem: we still needed to pick up his medication. The only silver lining about his altered state was that it was able to somewhat mitigate his pain, but he definitely didn't want to risk infection by waiting until the next day to pick up the medication. Of course, we didn't have a car, and we'd already called our lifeline to get back to home base, so now we were on our own. Not to mention the fact that, as stated before, we had called the medication to a different pharmacy than normal in order to avoid the closing time, so the walking distance was significantly farther than we'd anticipated. I offered to walk there by myself, but he was concerned about me venturing out into a large urban city in an altered state by myself at night, so we both had to walk over half a mile down to the pharmacy. If that wasn't bad enough, several of the roads were closed due to construction, which made our trip even longer and more complex. As we were trudging to the pharmacy, both of us still feeling like laminated paper, my boyfriend asked if we could pick up Domino's on the way back since there's one super close to the co-op. He mentioned Domino's several times during the walk. Wanting to make up for my less than solid performance as a partner for the past few hours, I agreed, buying about $50 worth of Domino's for 2 people. When I set the order to pick up, the app indicated that the location was not currently doing pickup orders. I, in my unblemished record of wisdom, decided to change the pickup location to the second closest Domino's to the co-op without consulting my boyfriend about it. After all, it's on the same street as the pharmacy, so there couldn't possibly be any issues, right? The Domino's was a 25-minute walk from the pharmacy in the opposite direction from the co-op. The order had not yet been paid for and we couldn't figure out how to change it from pickup to delivery. For some reason, neither of us thought to just call. After walking to the pharmacy and waiting half an hour for the medication to be refilled, my boyfriend started to sober up. He realized that he would soon be in a mental state befitting a low-rate chauffeur, and we decided to find a bus route that would bring us as close to his car as possible. After waiting at the bus station for another 15 minutes, my boyfriend's pain slowly began creeping back up on him. Determined to get the car and the Domino's, he persevered and sat on the bus waiting for our next stop as I tried, and failed to pay the bus toll. We were emotionally and physically exhausted, excited to get home with our pizza and, in my boyfriend's case, take medication for a UTI. The bus sped by the urgent care with my boyfriend's car in the parking lot, approaching our bus stop. Then drove right past it. I was not presently capable of contorting my face into an expression that could do this situation justice. We watched, helpless, as the bus drove farther and farther away from our stop. The buildings began to look unfamiliar in the dark, or, more accurately, we were in an unfamiliar part of town in the dark, and we were well beyond the range to walk back to my boyfriend's car. Eventually, once the bus came to a screeching halt at the next stop, my boyfriend and I darted out the door. At this point, my boyfriend was beyond distraught, and I realized I would have to be the one to figure this out despite my mental state. I led the both of us to a gas station across the street and called for an Uber to bring us back to the car, something I should have done back at the pharmacy. My boyfriend needed to sit down, but there was no public seating around. The first Uber was a bust. He kept driving farther away instead of closer. I called another in due time, but that couldn't stop my boyfriend from kneeling on the sidewalk, bawling his eyes out as we both loitered in front of a gas station. Eventually, the Uber came and picked us up, and we were able to pick up our Domino's an hour late and drive home without incident. So, here's an important life lesson for you. Don't show your feet to a homeless guy that was offering special gummies in return.